Apple's strategic shift, why India leads iPhone production. iPhone exports from India continue to rise despite U.S. President Donald Trump asking Apple not to make its products in India. Sanchit Gogia, CEO, Greyhound Research, believes that despite the political rhetoric in the U.S. and renewed pressure on Apple to reshore manufacturing, large-scale U.S. production of iPhones is economically and operationally infeasible in the near term. India's scalable production base, rising domestic market, policy support, and the geopolitical neutrality required for long-term planning work to its advantage, he adds. As quoted in the Hindu Business Line, in an article authored by Sindha Hariharan published on June 17, 2025, beyond the media quote, our view in full. Despite U.S. pressure, Apple deepens its India bet for global supply chain resilience. According to Greyhound Research, India is no longer just an emerging node in Apple's supply chain. It is now a central pillar of the company's de-risking strategy. While political rhetoric in the United States, especially from figures like Donald Trump, has renewed pressure on Apple to reshore manufacturing, the ground reality remains unambiguous. Large-scale U.S. production of iPhones is economically and operationally infeasible in the near term. Apple's own assessments point to insurmountable barriers from cost escalation, estimated at $3,000 plus per U.S.-made iPhone, to workforce constraints and the absence of a dense supplier ecosystem. Instead of reshoring, Apple has chosen India as the launchpad to fulfill both U.S. and global demand amid rising China-specific risk. The Indian government's incentives, including the Production-Linked Incentive (PLI) scheme, combined with Apple's need to diversify away from single-market exposure, have culminated in a new production architecture: multi-market, multi-region, and politically resilient. Even under fresh U.S. tariff regimes, Apple has continued accelerating India output, tripling its iPhone exports from Indian facilities over the last year alone. For a company long scrutinized for its dependency on China, India offers the unique advantage of geopolitical neutrality without sacrificing production efficiency. And while U.S. policymakers may continue advocating for domestic production, Apple's multi-billion-dollar capital allocations in India, alongside strategic partners like Foxconn, Pegatron, and Tata, reveal where the company truly sees its future. India is not a tactical hedge. It is a long-haul anchor. India's strategic advantages eclipse China and the U.S. in Apple's supply chain calculus. According to Greyhound Research, India occupies a rare and strategic middle ground in Apple's global supply chain architecture, simultaneously cost-effective, geopolitically aligned, and increasingly self-sufficient. Where China once offered unmatched scale and manufacturing maturity, its growing regulatory opacity and geopolitical volatility have rendered it a risk-heavy proposition. Meanwhile, the United States, despite policy-level incentives to reshore manufacturing, remains structurally unsuited for high-volume electronics assembly due to cost, labor force scale, and supply chain fragmentation. India, in contrast, offers Apple a calibrated mix of economic pragmatism and political predictability. On the cost front, while unit economics in India remain 5 to 10% higher than in China due to component imports, this gap is more than offset by substantial government incentives, such as PLI subsidies and relaxed tax frameworks. These benefits are further amplified by India's growing domestic demand, which allows Apple to localize both production and consumption, something neither China nor the U.S. can currently offer at the same scale with the same growth runway. Additionally, India's large, young workforce has proved capable of scaling up to meet Apple's quality expectations. The iPhone 15 rollout in 2024 was the first to feature near-simultaneous assembly in both China and India, a significant milestone in Apple's localization journey. India's appeal is also underpinned by its role in reducing geopolitical exposure. Apple's strategic diversification away from China is not just a hedge, it's a response to lived experience. From pandemic-era shutdowns to export control shocks, Apple has seen firsthand the dangers of supply chain concentration. India offers a stable, democratic, and diplomatically aligned environment, supported by deepening infrastructure in regions like Tamil Nadu and Karnataka. While challenges persist, including supplier base immaturity and continued reliance on Chinese subcomponents, Apple has demonstrated increasing confidence in India's capability to mature. The ongoing expansion of ancillary vendors and local OEMs like Tata Electronics signals a broader ecosystem shift, with India moving from being an assembly hub to a production ecosystem in its own right. In sum, India's value to Apple lies not in any single factor, but in its holistic proposition: a scalable production base, rising domestic market, policy support, and the geopolitical neutrality required for long-term planning. For a company under pressure to de-risk without degrading margins, India presents the most viable solution, and Apple's deepening investment suggests that this belief is firmly institutionalized. Analyst in focus, Sanchit Gogia. Sanchit Gogia, or SVG as he is popularly known, is a globally recognized technology analyst, innovation strategist, digital consultant, and board advisor. SVG is the chief analyst, founder and CEO of Greyhound Research, a global, award-winning technology research, advisory, consulting, and education firm. Greyhound Research works closely with global organizations, their CXOs, and the board of directors on technology and digital transformation decisions. SVG is also the founder and CEO of the House of Greyhound, an eclectic venture focusing on interdisciplinary innovation. Read about SVG. Copyright policy. All content contained on the Greyhound Research website is protected by copyright law and may not be reproduced, distributed, transmitted, displayed, published, or broadcast without the prior written permission of Greyhound Research or, in the case of third-party materials, the prior written consent of the copyright owner of that content. You may not alter, delete, obscure, or conceal any trademark, copyright, or other notice appearing in any Greyhound Research content. We request our readers not to copy Greyhound Research content and not republish or redistribute them, in whole or partially, via emails or republishing them in any media, including websites, newsletters, or intranets. We understand that you may want to share this content with others, so we've added tools under each content piece that allow you to share the content. If you have any questions, please get in touch with our community relations team at connect@thofker.com.